Welcome to the latest edition of Until Saturday, live edition, picks edition. I'm Ari Wasserman here with Seth Emerson, our Georgia beat writer and SEC expert, and Dave Ubbin, who's probably going to tell us that he ate something weird and obscure in public this week.
SEC
And I'm super
expert
excited to hear that stuff.
Dave Ubbin, who's probably
No, I had a cutie before the show. Ari, is that too weird for you?
No, that's okay. With a little tangerines or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're a little cutie. Okay, so we got a lot. We've got a lot to get into. I mean, it'd be kind of hilarious if you bought the cutie. Like, I'm sure you could find a time and place where it's inappropriate, and I'm sure that's when you eat it. But it feels good to be back, guys. We've got a lot on our plate today. Thursday show is always a lot to get through because going through the games before they happen is always harder than talking about what occurs afterward. And somebody tweeted at me. And I think they tweeted at you too this morning, Dave. And they go, "Why does The Athletic make you guys give gambling picks? You're not handicappers, you're sports reporters. This isn't your job. There's people who have that full time." And I'm like, I know, but we're going to do our best.
We try to tell people.
And I'm not acting like I'm a gambling expert. In fact, I lean on gambling experts in their analysis when I make my own plays and make the picks on this show. So that's all part of research. It's what we do. There's a handicapper out there named Tyler Shoemaker on Twitter who's really sharp. And if you are into gambling, he breaks down numbers and things that we can't see on TV and does it in a very smart way and is actually very good at hitting bets. So before we get into the show, guys, let me just welcome you again formally to Until Saturday's Week 6 Pick Show. Be sure to follow the podcast on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcasts and drop us a 5-star review and leave a question with that review, and we'll answer it on the show. Subscribe to the Until Saturday YouTube channel if you're listening to this in podcast form. The link to the YouTube will be found in the show's description on the podcast. And also, of course, if you're listening to this on YouTube Live right now, we appreciate it. Be sure to go find the podcast under the same name, Until Saturday. Everything that you can do, like, share, comment, thumbs up, whatever you can do to help the show continue to grow would be greatly appreciated. It is a big help to us. So lastly, we go live 3 times a week. Thursday, as we are right now for the pick show. Saturday nights to contextualize what happened, the reaction show of the day. And then Sunday sound off show where we come back 24 hours later and allow the fans to tell us what's on their mind. If you want to do that, you can leave a voicemail at the Until Saturday phone line, 316-462-9852. Again, that's 316-462-9852. You can call or text it. It gets text subscriber questions. We can read them, but we will definitely err on using the voices because we love hearing your voices on the show. Everything that I just outlined there can be found in the show's description, and all the lines that you will hear on this show moving forward are sponsored by BetMGM. Okay. Quick news before we start, guys, and then we'll get into the picks.
It's lawyer
Pat
season.
Fitzgerald, lawyer up season in the Big Ten. Pat Fitzgerald, I think we all knew this was coming, especially considering the fact that it was kind of just a bizarre way that Northwestern handled the hazing incident, is suing Northwestern for $130 million. Any takes on this?
I think his central argument seems like it will be that nothing changed from his 2-week suspension to being fired. This is why, Ari, I know this sounds like a hot take. If I was a college president and my most public employee was under an investigation and I got a full report, I might read it before I made a huge decision. Just a thought. And then
maybe not admit that you didn't if you didn't.
Yes. Just a thought. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit too much to ask. I know they're very busy people. They got funds to raise and backs to slap and, facilities to build. But again, if you're going to fund and do a big investigation of your most public employee, read the report before you decide a punishment. Just a thought.
Seth, you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think you were going to talk about Mel Tucker also. And in both of these cases, isn't there a lag between the administration knowing everything and them actually doing anything? And in between that lag is the media publishing something?
There seems to be some disagreement on the Mel Tucker situation of who knew what and when. And that seems to be the zone in which they're maybe focusing on. I imagine that both of these will be settlements. I would guess that
I mean, they're not getting their
we'll get
jobs
more.
back. So,
Well, sure, but you can get some of what you're owed, I guess. 130 million is pretty steep. He's not getting that, but I don't think either of these sides would love discovery or a trial or anything like that. I think it behooves both of them to reach some sort of settlement to sort of make this go away. That's usually how these things are handled.
the goal is a settlement and enough of a reputation back enough that they can get another job. That's the goal.
I guess that's the goal. I think Fitzgerald will have a much easier time than Mel Tucker would. I think with Fitzgerald, if you come under someone else's roof, you can sort of say, well, I'm in control here and so. Like, I could see him getting a job, not that long if he really wanted one. Mel Tucker, it might be a little while.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing to do in college football is if you have a thing that prevents you from being able to recruit effectively. And I think you can make a case for both of these coaches being in that category. So, like, I don't know, Pat Fitzgerald was always somebody who came up for NFL jobs. And I don't know if that is something that would present itself again. I don't mean head coaching jobs, but I mean, I could see him being a coordinator at the NFL level where hazing and things of that nature
is back.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I mean. I don't mean like Mel Tucker or Pat Fitzgerald getting a head coaching job anytime ever or soon, but enough that like someone can bring one or both on as an analyst in a year or two or something along those lines.
I think Ari put it well, is that I don't want to give presidents or ADs too much credit and be like, oh, they're going to draw the line in the sand. They don't want these people. No, if this guy could win 10 games a year for you, you probably would do it. But the reality is that what they did, has prevented them from doing their job effectively. And more than anything, that is what I think will keep them.
Well, here's the funniest thing about this whole thing, too. Not funny, but Pat Fitzgerald, I think that you could make the case, got more with less for a long period of time than anybody in college football. So from a program building standpoint, Pat Fitzgerald would be a very tempting hire if you were a place that had academic restrictions or you were behind the eight ball in recruiting in some sense, because he took them to 2 or 3 Big Ten championship games. Granted, it was out of the West, but with the way that program has recruited and the teams that he was playing against, sometimes in the crossover rivalries in the Big Ten, to do that not once but twice or 3 times, I think is a very there were times maybe 4 or 5 years ago where I might have put Pat Fitzgerald as a top 10 coach in college football on my personal list if Stewart or Bruce ever asked me to join their fun. So that I think would be tempting. With Mel Tucker, like, there is a lot of thought process of, let some time pass, things happen, and then move forward. But like, has he ever won big enough or proven to be a big enough winner where the burden of what happened here is no longer outweighing the benefit of it? Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't know if he's proven enough as a winner to be like a necessary hire for anyone.
No, it's a good football coach coming up, a guy with a lot of respect, sort of from this, he's been around a lot of really good coaches. But I think certainly what happened is you have one really good year at Michigan State, and Michigan State knows that they're liable to be poached. And they said, here's all our chips. We're pushing them all in on this guy. We're giving him this crazy contract because, we know that this is going to pay off over time. And then we want this to be our guy. And we haven't seen a, contract. I mean, you can talk about Jimbo all you want, but we haven't seen a contract backfire quite like that in some time. But now it seems like they'll get out from under at least some of.
But when you look to hire Mel Tucker, what do you see? You see a coach that had a really good first year, a lot of which had to do with Kenneth Walker. But let's not pretend that Michigan State was headed to the moon a month ago, like before this happened. Like, they were headed. There's and that's the whole. There's a connection,
right? I mean, the skeptics case for this is like, if this happens to Kirby Smart, is it handled the same way, right? And I think
exactly.
I think there's a line that's a lot further on the wins scale that gets a coach fired. Just speaking pragmatically for how college athletics work. Kirby Smart does not get fired, but like, you don't have to win 2 national championships. Like, he did a lot. I would say 85 to 90% of coaches get fired for what Mel Tucker did or was alleged to do, whether it's consensual or whatever.
Hugh Freeze is another
Yeah.
I just covered a game where he was still coaching, but he had to go away for a little bit. Then he had to go to Liberty. It took Auburn hiring him, and
this is a college football podcast. I don't think that we have to, mince words about it. If you are a very good coach who is a proven winner, there's a lot that can be looked past your off the field transgressions in order to move forward in that. So, okay. I think it's time to go to the picks. One last piece of news. Mel Tucker will not attend the hearing that Michigan State had scheduled for today and Friday because of a serious medical condition. So that is what his attorney said on Thursday. Do with that as you will. That's just a piece of news that I think that we need to get out there. So Daniel Garrett here is back in the comments. Last week, he fired off a winner for me. Akron -2.5. It didn't hit. He's back for more.
I feel like this is the Matt Commissioner's burner or something. We got
Bowling Green. You can get +10, but it's 9.5 at BetMGM. That's his play this week. Everybody, he's 0-1 on official plays. I'm gonna put him up here every week because I want to see. I want to let my man cook. I like Bowling Green, but not because of Daniel, because of my buddy Tyler, who also likes that side, I think. So, okay, let's get into the picks. Let's start with the game that everybody's talking about, even more so than a rivalry game. Georgia and Kentucky. Seth, let me just ask you.
They are talking about it?
Everyone's talking about it. Let's go to the moon, baby.
Everywhere I go. I went to the store and, these cashiers, I had 5 cashiers say, have you heard about this Georgia-Kentucky game? It's unbelievable.
What were you buying? Pig's feet?
Yeah, sorry. Give us some thoughts on where Georgia is and its run to a 3-peat.
So, Georgia, let's go back to last year. They got a scare at Missouri. Mm-hmm. It woke them up, and they didn't have another down-to-the-wire game until the playoffs against the one team probably capable of giving them that down-to-the-wire game, Ohio State. Mm-hmm. This year, you wondered if the South Carolina game would be the wake-up. Then it had to do it even more and had to actually go down to the wire last week against Auburn. So here's what I'm wondering about this team right now. Does it need an actual loss to jar it into reaching its potential? This program has won 22 in a row. It keeps digging itself out of holes against weaker opponents. Is there a pervading sense within that program, or at least just enough people on that team that it'll always be okay? I don't know, honestly. Is Georgia sufficiently woken up now, and will it roll over Kentucky and then roll over the rest of its regular season schedule at least? Or is it a team that schematically is just this is what we're going to see, and they're due. They're going to lose to somebody perhaps as soon as Saturday. I don't know if Kentucky's the team to lose to. It could be, but I've seen this movie before. I've been on this beat continually since 2010, which means I've never seen Georgia lose to Kentucky. I've seen them lose to every other SEC team at some point, including Vanderbilt twice, with the exception of Texas A&M, which they've only played once since they got in the league. But they always beat Kentucky, and the reason lately is because, honestly, they're built similar. But Georgia has more talent. It's like I wrote in a story a couple of days ago, it's like the Spider-Man meme of the 2 Spider-Men pointing at each other, except one of them is larger and faster.
And bigger, stronger, and faster, and bulkier, and sexier.
Yeah. Yeah. And this game's in Athens. This game's at night. Georgia actually got out of the Auburn game in decent health shape, as far as we know. So Georgia, I think, is 0-4-1 against the spread this year.
Yes.
But
4-0.
and I also, there's part of me that's like, this is going to catch up to Georgia at some point. But the part of me that says, if you gave me, like, I've got to put a lot of money on this game, I'd take Georgia to cover.
So here's what I wanted to ask, Dave, if you don't mind, real quick.
I'll have at it.
So the way that you were describing that scenario, or what you see out of this Georgia football team, is an implication of some sleepwalking, right? Like this team is just needs to get slapped in the face, cold water, thrown into the face to wake up. But my
because they
question
keep
is,
getting out of these situations,
right?
And so you kind of like you have a big team. Everyone just kind of there becomes this collective sense of we'll get this. Like Carson will do it, or we'll just give the ball to Brock, or the defense will rise up, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think that that's a pretty normal thing. Like the thing that I think is most incredible about what Nick Saban did at Alabama was that he somehow convinced his team that they hadn't done anything even when they've done something.
Mm-hmm.
So to win it 3 years in a row, I think a lot of times the number one hurdle to do it 2 or 3 years in a row is to want it as bad as you did when you didn't have it.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm going to ask you here, because I do think that obviously Georgia isn't supremely talented. You know where I stand on recruiting stars and the way that roster is built. There's no
I
bones
don't.
about
Please tell me.
But the thing that I'm wondering for real here is, are these grab-ass sleepwalking games, or are these symptoms to an ailment that actually exists within the program or the offense that is going to cause them to lose? Not because they don't care or not because they're not locked in, but because maybe they're not good enough this year to go undefeated. Like, is that a real thought to you, or is it just when they wake up, they're going to go back to Death Star?
No, I mean, it could definitely be that, Ari. And the bigger worry about that is the defense. Like the offense was always going to take a slight step back because you have a new quarterback, new coordinator, new left tackle. Both tackles from last year are gone, and the one that had some experience is hurt right now. But they've actually been pretty, they've been what you kind of would expect on offense. They've been, and Carson Beck is getting better by the game. It's the defense. The defense gave up 2 touchdowns against South Carolina in the first half. They gave up 2 touchdowns to UAB. Then they gave up 2 touchdowns on short fields after turnovers to Auburn. But also Auburn ran the ball for more than 200 yards, which nobody had done in 6 years against Georgia. And most of it was QB run, most of it to the edges. That's not really Kentucky's thing. So that's why it's not like a huge red flare. But yeah, Georgia's defense has to get better. Like the formula for this Georgia team is going to three-peat was great defense, very good offense. And I thought the offense would get to very good, or could get to very good. And honestly, the offense has probably been better than the defense. And the defense also has not been good at forcing turnovers like that. I had this in my mailbag this morning. I looked it up. Everyone talks about Georgia's slow starts. Georgia has only gotten 8 turnovers all year, and 4 of them were at the end of the game. South Carolina threw 2 interceptions on the final drive, and the other 4 have all been in the second quarter. So Georgia's more likely been to turn it over early on than to get a turnover and get ahead and have this fast start. It really is a team thing. I think the offense and the defense have been kind of equally responsible for both slow starting and this team not being impressive, but the defense was supposed to be better.
I think people have gotten used to the idea that Georgia should just dominate everybody. And I think that there is a realization, especially with all the turnover, that that's more the exception than the rule. Like the idea that you can just walk through and everybody is going to be, falling all over themselves to try and score 10 points against you. Like there's not a lot of teams ever that can do that. And there's certainly not a lot with as many guys playing big roles for the first time as we've seen with Georgia. Last year, by the way, Georgia, number 3 in yards per carry allowed. This year, 67th.
Yeah.
Kentucky,
mostly
by the way, number 2.
QB run. Mostly
yes.
QB run.
QB number 2. But I will say, for all that ranking, Seth, it's not like they played a murderer's row. You have a South Carolina team that looks very, very average. They didn't have the sort of big-time out-of-conference game. And then an Auburn team that, is whatever. I think they're sort of spunky. They seem to have a lot of offensive issues from week to week. So it's for me, I like Kentucky to cover here. I think Devin Leary gives you enough balance. It feels like a reputation line here of people that have not been paying attention to what Georgia has actually done. And Kentucky, the best team they've played, I would say, by a decent margin. And so the idea that Georgia is going to – I don't think it's a sleepwalking thing. I think it's just a very good team that is just not going to blow teams away, despite how talented they are.
I think that's always very tempting to fade Georgia in these scenarios. Kentucky is 5-0. They're building something. They have Devin Leary. On paper, like you could convince yourself that Georgia is not going to cover the spread. And in the past, I've gotten into a lot of trouble with that thought process. There was one game where Georgia was playing Arkansas 2 years ago. I think Arkansas was getting 17.5, or it was kind of a 5-0 versus 5-0 game. Seth, you might remember this.
Yeah.
I think Georgia was winning like 38-0 at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah,
like it was like
there
a blowout.
There was a block punt
Like,
in there. It was pretty
the
bad.
fact that like this game is in Georgia, the fact that they've slept walked through 2 games already. Kentucky is undefeated. Like, I'm not going to give into the temptation this time. I'm just going to roll with the team that I think is better. And if Kentucky somehow finds a way to win this game or cover this game, then we'll have further discussion about whether or not Georgia's flawed. But, we're going into week 6 here, and I'm not going to just like punt on who's supposed to be the clear-cut favorite to win the national title because they played a few close games. And maybe Kentucky. It's not like Devin Leary's out there playing like John Elway either. So like, there's still a leap of faith that you have to.
Let's not short Ray Davis here. I just think the idea that there is a Georgia 21 and a Georgia 22 hiding inside this team, I don't know that I buy that. I think they're very good. I just think they're just not at the level that we've seen the last year.
We need to see Georgia's defense play like we expect Georgia's defense to play.
Yeah.
And the reason Dave might be right on at least them covering is we've seen Mark Stoops' team shorten the game against Georgia, and they're capable of doing that. It may not be via Devin Leary's feet the way it was Peyton Thorne's feet against Auburn, but it may be Kentucky's coaches seeing what Auburn did, seeing what UAB did, seeing what South Carolina did, and said, this defense is vulnerable this way, that way, so we're going to scheme up this and that. Yeah.
I want to make one final point, and then we have got to move on. I'm happy spending a lot of time on this game because it's an important game.
It's an interesting game.
I want to say that I don't think that anybody, like the only person who plays their position as well as Brock Bowers plays tight end is Marvin Harrison playing receiver, right? Is there anybody else in college football that could even?
I might disagree with you, Ari. I would.
You might think
ahead of him.
Yeah, I'm saying like that's.
Yeah, I think Brock's better
in
terms of just how you play your position, in terms of value. In part because Georgia's so good, they just like Brock.
But like he took over a game last week.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know we had a discussion earlier in the year of like, Georgia's not going to use Brock Bowers in terms of like cumulative touches enough to make him a Heisman candidate. But like, I don't care about that stuff. Like what he did last week to me is Heisman worthy. And like, I'm going to put him on if he does it again, he's going to make my ballot because I just think he's a tremendous player. And Seth, he won them the game last week.
Yeah. And it was almost like, and reviewing the film, Auburn actually like did single coverage more as the game went on. Like safety came late. It was almost like coaching malpractice by Auburn's defense, like leaving him open. It wasn't really Bowers getting open by himself. And, I don't know, maybe some, starting with Kentucky, they'll scheme it up better. But some of it is also that Georgia does have other weapons. And people sometimes say, well, why don't they give Bowers the ball just from the start? Well, some of it's they're developing the other weapons. They're making the defense think about, Dylan Bell out of the backfield and Marcus Rosemy-Jackson, Ladd McConkey being back helps them, and et cetera, et cetera. But, and one note on Bowers, his numbers are probably what's going to keep him from getting Heisman consideration because they're not going to be huge. But he's also on pace for over 1,000 yards, which would make him Georgia's first player to have 1,000 yards in 21 years.
It's crazy. Ladd McConkey, step it up.
All right, next game, guys. And this is probably the biggest game of the week.
Yeah.
So I don't trick.
Not just for this podcast, sorry, but for football.
Yeah, I wore this. I gotta get my hats rotation going, but I thought I'd give this one last run here with the boys on there. Red River Rivalry. Texas number 3 versus number 12 Oklahoma. If you care about rankings, Texas is laying 6.5 points. The over/under is 60.5. The game is here in Dallas. Go, Dave.
All right, you're not going to this. Is this correct?
I'm not. No, I could not make it this week. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think this will be lower scoring than people expect. 2 best teams in the Big 12 in stop rates. Oklahoma against competent defenses, and I use that term liberally. We're talking about SMU and Cincinnati here. They have not looked great. They have not passed 30 points. Texas, more than competent defensively. I suspect they can slow Texas down a little bit. But this, all right, did you know this is the first time that Texas has showed up to the State Fair of Texas as a top 10 team since 2009? It's simultaneously believable and unbelievable to me.
Can I tell you my most unbelievable Texas stat, and then you can continue?
Please do.
When Bijan Robinson got taken in the first round of this year's NFL draft, he was the first Texas offensive player to get selected in the first round since Vince Young.
Yeah, I actually believe that. I've watched enough Texas football.
Think about that. Think about how mind-boggling that is. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Jonathan Gray's Achilles tendons are probably to blame for that one. But, yeah, so, if Texas fans are to be believed, Ari, obviously they were a shoulder injury away from winning the national championship that year. If you told me this season ends with a Texas national title, I think I wouldn't be floored at this point, but
you wouldn't?
I wouldn't be, Ari. There is a chance here. Ari, that we get another 37-13, 37-17 Texas beatdown. But I think OU, I think Dylan Gabriel, having him there, I think he can make enough plays down the field. A couple big plays. Defense has been quietly a lot better than people realize from Oklahoma. I think they can. This gets a little muddy, not as fun as some of the other Red River games we've seen, but I think Texas wins it, but OU keeps it close.
So Oklahoma has, up until this week, has sort of snuck up on people this year because they were ready to write them off, and Brett Venables was going to be 2 and out. But here they are undefeated. So there's almost like there's continuation of, well, I got to give Oklahoma more credit and maybe, pick them to win. And I don't want to overcredit Oklahoma for being better than expected. And I don't want to undercredit Texas for what it's done because it's Texas and we basically have to see them hoisting the national championship trophy before we stop making Texas is back references, in a derisive manner, that is. So I'm not saying the Horns won't win the national title or will, but just saying that based on what they've done, that Alabama game sticks out to me. And if I guess I wouldn't be shocked if Oklahoma does win, because we don't have enough data at this point to say whether or not they're for real or not. But my hard-earned money would go on Texas covering.
Okay, I got to do it, guys. I have been the driver of the Texas bus since before the season started. And I am very aware that I have probably a personal staked interest in Texas winning just based on my...
Ari, there's room in the ditch with me on the LSU bus if you want to join us. It's fine. Come on over.
I've already put a water bottle down there just to wait for me. But I don't think if Texas loses this game, I'm in that ditch. Especially considering the fact for somebody who, doesn't want the playoff to expand because of the sanctity of the regular season, that I think there's a probably high likelihood that they're playing again in Dallas at the end of the year. So
it's looking that way.
I think Texas is going to win this game. But Oklahoma is very undervalued. And there is a lot that goes into gambling than just offensive line, defensive line, who has the better quarterback. There are a lot of advanced statistics that go into this that, are things that we don't even consider. And for that, I look at people who look at the math from top to bottom and create their own power rankings to create the system and the numbers that they have. And Tyler Shoemaker, who's somebody I've already referenced on this show, is one of the most respected gambling experts on Twitter, has Oklahoma rated as his number 1 team, statistically speaking, through the first few games. Now, this isn't Moneyball. Things happen. I get that. But I think we are significantly undervaluing Oklahoma as a football team because of our notions of what happened a year ago. And what happened a year ago in that game was Oklahoma didn't have a freaking quarterback. They literally couldn't run offense. So, of course, that was going to happen. I'm not saying that my potential national champion can't run away with this. Of course they could. I think that this is going to be a lower scoring game the way that you mentioned it would, Dave. I agree with that. I would hit the under in this game. But I also think I would take the points. I'm not willing to go out there and say that Oklahoma is going to win, even though that's a play for Tyler, 2-1. But this is going to be a close game, I think. And, we're not at the point now where Texas, I believe, is in Death Star mode where they just beat the crap out of everybody.
Yeah.
I know this isn't the type of game that you think that they would struggle with in that vein. That has to be Kansas State or somebody that we're not particularly looking for. But I do think that Texas could win by 5 or lose by 5 in this game. And I could show up to the podcast on Saturday night, not embarrassed, ready to talk about it, and still think that everything is ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really that worried about it. As long as they don't get blown out, which I hope they don't, I still think I could show up with a smile on my face. I think Oklahoma with the points, but I think Texas wins.
Can I tell you about the wildest Red River tradition that I learned about when I started covering this game?
If it's food related and you do it,
it's not food related, Ari.
All
it's
right.
not.
I get
food.
scared.
There are many Red River food traditions. I am a traditionalist. I go corny dog, fried Snickers, and then I'll usually try a couple of the exotic ones. I did back in the day.
What's exotic? What's exotic? I've never been to the fair.
What, Ari?
I've never been to the Texas State Fair.
Live in Dallas, Ari. Oh my gosh!
I need to go.
There's fried Thanksgiving dinner this year.
What is fried Thanksgiving dinner? They put turkey and stuffing, and then they fry it.
Yeah, it's like all the things in a Thanksgiving dinner, and it's fried up in like a ball, and then you can dip it in cranberry sauce and or gravy. Essentially, it was better than you would think. Fried butter is sort of more novelty than a real thing. The same goes for fried beer. Yeah, fried butter and fried beer are more just like laughing that they exist more than actual good things. But the fried Snickers is elite. Anyway, but the tradition is that I don't know how many people do this or exactly how popular it is still, but for a long time, there is a not insignificant number of Oklahoma players. They bust down to the game on Friday, obviously. You go, they give them like some time at the fair afterward, and then they bus back to Oklahoma with the team. And then players will carpool back down to Dallas to like party with friends and stuff, and then go back to Oklahoma on Sunday. That is insane. That is a lot of time on I-35, but a lot of players have done this for a long time. And I feel like there's a lot of shortcuts. I mean, yeah, if you wanted to just stay, I guess I don't know why you couldn't just do it, but I can't say that I would do that, Ari. But it's very funny, and Dallas
I do that like every weekend.
They're not just going to they're just not going to Weatherford or whatever, Ari. They're going to actually Norman. I can't believe you've never been to the State Fair of Texas, Ari. What? No,
I want to. Well, when I first moved here, it was COVID. Then the second year, my baby was born a week after it came out. So we weren't going to go then. And then it's the third year. So, I mean, it's not like
you had never heard of Clyde Warren Park last time we talked. So I was wondering if
I'm still trying. I mean, I'm not trying to. I'm not the cowboy hat. I'll tell you what, Texan yet. But I'm still trying to figure out. Like, we'll get there. I don't have cowboy boots or anything. But, I think
I grew up going to the Minnesota State Fair like every Labor Day weekend. And it's significantly better than the State Fair of Texas. But I assumed because it's Texas and everything is bigger, so I'm told, that State Fair of Texas would be bad. I found it very underwhelming the first time I went because I thought it would just be this blowout thing, and the Minnesota one is significantly better, but it is very fun. So enjoy the fair, folks.
And there's no talk of ever going to home and away for that series, right?
Oh, I would never go home and away. Yeah. The talk is whether or not, because listen, the Cotton Bowl Stadium, Ari, you haven't been there, have you?
I haven't been there, no. I've driven by, but I haven't been in it.
It's not good. It is a very old stadium. My second favorite event, other than Red River, is every April when we lived in Dallas, they would turn the Cotton Bowl into a giant dog park for the Dog Bowl, and we used to take our dog there, my wife and I, every year. It was extremely fun. A lot of dogs running around. It was great. But the question was whether they're going to go play this at Jerry World. And I don't think we'll ever get there because the State Fair is so synonymous with this game. Yeah. And they kind of keep upgrading the stadium enough to make it worth playing. But both teams come out the same tunnel. It's insane, Ari. It's a wild, wild ball game. You got to go.
Georgia, Florida gets that, especially it seems like every Georgia coach spends their first 7 or 8 years asking for the game to go to home and away. And then eventually just,
gives it up.
Yeah, we got to get a break here, guys, here in a second. But the one thing I want to say first, and I don't know if Cam can do this, it's pretty up high on the chat here, but we have a comment from Gringo Paulistano said, Dave, Ari, love the show. From somebody who struggles with loneliness and mental health, truly feels like I'm hanging out with my friends when I listen to you guys. Thank you. I wanted to give you a personal shout out. I appreciate you being here. You are our friends. Thank you so much. That touched me, and I just wanted to.
It did. I think that's what we want to be on this show, is that we
Yeah.
want to inform people. We want to have some fun and enjoy each other. And Ari and I, as much as we yell at each other, when I realize how badly Ari is wrong about the playoff and food takes and all these things, it is very fun. And
He's
I enjoy
definitely
the
wrong
show.
on the playoff.
Hey guys, I want to tell you the funniest thing about that is that column that I wrote on Monday ran in the New York Times today. I don't know if you saw this. And it kind of is funny to me because it was my first story ever running in the New York Times, but I am polluting the world now with this anti-expansion propaganda. And it's like, I couldn't have picked a better story that got picked for the New York Times than that one for me. So
it feels a little wrong to not have a Stars Matter column be your debut in the old gray lady, Ari.
I think there's people on Wall Street that need to open up their paper early on before the stock market opens to figure out how recruiting stars matter in this sport. Okay, let's get to break, guys.
Proper hydration isn't just if you're going to run a marathon or you're a superhuman athlete or you've got some big competition coming up. It's about daily maintenance, whether you're traveling and jumping on flights like we are during the season, or standing on the sidelines of your kids' sports games, or going to college football games. Whatever you're doing, you need hydration to be your best. It's essential, and Liquid IV is the #1 powered hydration brand in America. The one thing you're missing in your daily routine. You can use it in the morning, before you work out. You get in the afternoon, you get those afternoon sort of doldrums. Pep up with a little Liquid IV after a night out with friends, or, like you said, if you're on a flight and you need to make sure that your body is still operating. With just one stick, you can hydrate real life twice as fast as water. Plus, get essential vitamins and 3 times the electrolytes as leading sports drinks. I tried some recently, loved it. The lemon lime flavor was fantastic, and you just feel refreshed, and you're doing something good for your body. So real people, real flavor, real hydrating. Grab your Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code Saturday at checkout. That's 20% off anything when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code Saturday at liquidiv.com.
Innovation is changing the game, and with an investment in Invesco QQQ, you can access some of the top NASDAQ 100 companies revolutionizing the sports you know and love, all in a single ETF. 100 innovators, one fund. Invesco QQQ is the official ETF of the NCAA. There are risks involved with investing in ETFs, including possible loss of money. ETFs are subject to risks similar to those of stocks. Investments focused in the technology sector are subject to greater risk and are more greatly impacted by market volatility than more diversified investments. The NASDAQ 100 index comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies traded on the NASDAQ. An investment cannot be made directly into an index. NCAA is a trademark of the National Collegiate Athletic Association. Invesco is not affiliated with the NCAA. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Visit Invesco.com for a prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully before investing. Invesco Distributors, Incorporated.
Did you hear that ad, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
Investing is good, everyone. Okay. Let's continue on to some more picks here. Next game on the schedule, Washington State, 5-0.
Mm-hmm.
On the road at UCLA, 3-1, catching 3.5. Washington State's kind of on the verge of
line Saturday, Ari. That's what we're at.
What makes you think that's sketchy?
I mean, we haven't seen a ton from UCLA this year, and they got punked by Utah earlier this year. And Wazoo is sort of the darling. We were talking about them as, are they the third best team in the Pac-12? And they go play against a competent, semi-dangerous UCLA team, and they're a dog. What my eyes tell me, Wazoo wins this game. I might, if you flip this line, I would believe it, but I think Vegas might know more than my eyes. I trust my eyes a lot, but this is a case where I'm going to go with Vegas. I think UCLA wins and covers. This might be a shootout too. I'm not sure either of these teams are going to be able to stop the other. UCLA going all in on the Dante Moore experience, I think, might pay off here.
I like UCLA cover, just maybe brand name and home team, even though I'm not really sure, the Rose Bowl
Yeah, I don't know about the
Saturday.
environment.
Not sure how much of a crowd they're going to have, but yeah, I like the Dante Moore kind of momentum to continue. And Washington State, as good a story it is, and I wholeheartedly agree with everybody. I don't mind Pat McAfee. I much like Taylor Swift, I have no opinion, really. I'm sorry. But like what he said and what the people knocking Washington State, like, come on, absolutely. I hope Washington State and Oregon State play for the Pac-12 title, and they deserve to, complain and use it as a thrust for their season all they want. And it is kind of bullying to say what McAfee did. And it's not, he shouldn't have said it, and other people should just leave them alone. Okay. But I do kind of think that they're going to run into a Dante Moore momentum thing here.
I don't know. I mean, Dante Moore is a 5-star, and I know that he's looked good at times. But if you guys watched the Utah game, like they were lucky to score in that game.
Yes, it was bad.
I mean, it was like they didn't move the ball at all. And I understand that, you're going on the road. UCLA has been a tougher team. And I actually have been pretty impressed over the years the way that Brian Kelly has built up the lines there. And I think maybe that if there's a line issue, not gambling line, but offensive line, defensive line issue there, that things could get a little bit dicey. But, we're talking about a Washington State team that has had 2 proven semi-quality wins so far.
I wouldn't call them semi-quality. I would call them just quality.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what Wisconsin is. And they haven't gone on the road yet for the Wisconsin or Oregon State game. But 2 top 20 wins against the UCLA team that isn't, the greatest show on turf. I mean, it's like maybe they'll figure it out here, but I think I'm going to ride with them.
Sketchy line, Ari. Sketchy line.
I like Washington State. I think Washington State's a really good football team. They deserve some respect. 3.5 points, I think, seems pretty reasonable, and I think they're going to win the game outright. So, and I also want to see them go win as many games as possible because, as much as people think that I'm just a 5-star Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama stan, I want people to feel good. I want the sport to make people feel good. And if anybody deserves to feel good after kind of a shitty 6 months, who better than Washington State fans? So I'm going Washington State. I have the exact opposite sentiment as Pat McAfee, and let's keep it moving on that one. So
you sound like a changed. You sound like a changed man after your Dan therapy session.
I don't necessarily believe that they should be in the playoff, but they should definitely have a conference.
I believe you said to me just explicitly, I don't care about the little guy's feelings. So Ari, I appreciate you. This is growth. I
don't care about the little guy's feelings in terms of altering the sport in order to cater to them. Yeah. But they got screwed. There's a difference. Washington State has not been a team that has been irrelevant in the playoff conversation in the last 5 years. I think there's been times, if I'm not mistaken, at least when Leach was there, where Washington State was in the top 10 of the actual college football playoff rankings at the end of the year.
I will. Stephen Godfrey's column in the Washington Post this week was very good, and he didn't say it explicitly in these ways, but what ESPN has done to Washington State this week is essentially like pulling a Batman and murdering somebody's parents and then making fun of them for being an orphan. That's essentially what we've seen. Yeah. And that sucks. Don't do that.
Yeah. So, you know what? UCLA was part of the problem of how this all kind of began, and Washington State is the victim of it. I think Washington State's a better football team, and I'm not going to fall into the trap for the line here. I'm going to do that. Okay. Yeah. Yes, and our producer Cam Molina just said that they made it to the top 10 in the 2018 CFP rankings.
Is that the Gardner Minshew, Mike Leach experience?
Minshew mania, I think. So, yeah. No, the next game here, Michigan, number 2, 5-0, laying 19.5 on the road against Minnesota. It's a little brown jug rivalry. Minnesota is 1-9 in the last 10 meetings of this rivalry. 2024 to 2028 Big Ten schedule was released as we're recording it. Michigan gets Washington on the road next year, as well as Ohio State. That's pretty exciting when you think about like the prospect of it actually coming together. I hate that there's no more Pac-12. I hate that USC and UCLA and Washington and Oregon are in the Big Ten. But when you see the games pop up, it kind of gets a little bit better. And then they are home. Michigan, this is against USC and Oregon in 2024. Do you think that the Michigan Death Star keeps rolling this week, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this team, and I couldn't believe that they were actually 3-2, because if you'd asked me, they're putting out like 1-4 vibes, right? They get stuck in this disaster of a game against Nebraska that unfortunately somebody had to win. They have also lost to a Louisiana team that's not exactly a world beater, blew a 3-touchdown lead to Northwestern. Ari, I don't understand how Michigan doesn't cover this by like a lot. I don't know how Minnesota's going to score against that defense. Minnesota's barely had a pulse this year. Michigan's team with 20 points seems low. Like if you can get like an alt line or something like 25 or 27 and get plus money on this, I might do that. This feels like.
Well, the question is whether or not Michigan is built to score 58 points.
They're not going to have to score 58.
They haven't given up more than 7 points all year.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Minnesota's not getting to double digits in this.
They've only broken 40 once, too. So when you start getting into the alt line, 25, 28, I mean, trust me, buddy, come to the dark side of gambling, and you'll appreciate how important points are.
I just think Minnesota. This is not going to be competitive.
I think Michigan's going to cover too. What about you, Seth?
I saw 19, and I thought that's too many points for a home team, and so I was going to pick Minnesota, but y'all were like. I mean, look, I am the SEC writer. I am not the Big Ten writer.
But you went to Minnesota, so you're more qualified than us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I went to another current Big Ten school, but I did travel up to Minnesota to do a story. I drive around my house.
That's what I'm saying. You
traveled
there.
Michigan decal on the back of my car, as you saw when you visited me in Athens, my wife's alma mater. But you guys know more. But I feel like I got to stick with my instinct, which was 19 points at home, and also just reaching here, but maybe Michigan's kind of due for one of their Georgia-like clunkers. Because they've played well the first 5
It kind of seemed like that was going to happen in the Rutgers game a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Rutgers went out 7-0 like in the first minute of the game, and I think it was 7-7 and into the middle of the second quarter, and it just kind of felt like one of those weird games, and then Michigan just went into robot mode.
And Rutgers might be better than Minnesota, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah. I think that Michigan is probably going to handle it. And you know what? Michigan doesn't play a game of consequence until November. I guess that, November 11th when they play on the road at Penn State.
But they're doing what Georgia was supposed to do.
They have to do that. They have to keep doing it.
Bad schedules, and yet Michigan is rolling teams and
game control, baby. Game control. If you don't have a schedule, you better have game control.
Yep. Okay, biggest game of the week on Dave's card.
Mm-hmm.
Mizzou, where he went.
Tiger on Tiger violence right now.
Playing LSU, his preseason national championship pick, which gets funnier to say as every week goes by.
Still in it, Ari. Still in it, just for the record.
Yeah, and before we pick this game, guys, I just wanted to say prayers for LSU safety Greg Brooks Jr., who was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer this week that I think only affects like 500 people total a year. I really, really hope, bigger than sports, bigger than anything, that he's just going to be okay. So I wanted to acknowledge that we're thinking about him and hope that,
it sounds like they believe they got it all in surgery and he won't get any other treatments beyond that. But, brain surgery is, a big deal.
Intrusive and scary. And just wishing the best. So Mizzou, I don't know. One of my best buddies that I live here in Dallas with played at Mizzou a few years ago, and he's getting real fired up about it. I don't know. Like, listen, I don't know if it's too late for LSU to turn the light on and just start cruising again, but the game is on the road. And then if you go look at this chunk of schedule for Mizzou, they play Kentucky, South Carolina. It is not outside of the realm of possibility, if they somehow can figure out a way to win this game, that they're 8-0 against the big bad Bulldogs in a few weeks.
Yep.
And I am here for it.
This is another sort of
this year's TCU, baby.
This is another fishy line for me, Ari, because you look at this, you look at the way that Mizzou has played, and this is a brand name situation, because LSU right now, dead last in the Power 5, 125th nationally in stop rate. And a lot of that is because of the secondary. The secondary has not been very good. Meanwhile, Theo Weiss and Luther Burden, probably better than any receiver on Ole Miss's roster. And Brady Cook is finally mostly healthy. He's got like a knee thing he's dealing with. Listen, if LSU finally does, quote unquote, wake up and start flexing, that might be the case. But Mizzou may go win this outright. Mizzou plus 6.5 is my lock of the week. I think LSU going on the road in a game that, listen, Faurot Field, it's not Kyle Field, but they can get up for some games. You're in the sort of a hole. It's sort of an underground stadium. It's a pretty interesting atmosphere when they come. But when that place gets going, it can get going. And I think Mizzou fans who had modest expectations coming into the year starting to smell it a little bit. And this is a game that you can really announce yourself as somebody that should be taken seriously, and you can get a nice bump in the polls for beating a team that a lot of people still think is very good in LSU and is still a talented team, but a very flawed team, specifically in the secondary, which is Mizzou's best strength right now. Luther Burden leading the nation in receiving. So I think Mizzou has a chance to win this thing outright. They definitely cover. It's my lock of the week at plus 6.5.
Catherine, I want a actual prediction from you in the text over here to put up here, because I want to know what you think of this game. Seth, why don't you cook while Catherine's typing?
So I started this off by thinking we know who Missouri is, but the question then is who is LSU? But I'm kind of reversing on that. I think LSU has kind of shown us who they are, and that is a team that's just going to be, 9-3, maybe even 8-4 ish. The question is whether, like I think Ari said, is Missouri like this year's TCU or something? Like you want to say, all right, they've kind of improved in our eyes as a team whose ceiling is like 9-3, but then you remember they had Luther Burden, who's really good
in the country.
yeah. And
I've been told stars matter. I can't remember who told me
it's
that.
incredible what happens when you take the claw at the arcade and grab a 5-star receiver by the neck, put him up, and then pluck him down onto a roster, the type of impact he can have on a football team.
This to me is.
I watched Toy Story yesterday.
Other
Sorry
than
for that analogy.
Yeah. Okay. Forky is the best. Sure. Toy Story, but Georgia, Kentucky, it is what it is. LSU, Missouri to me is the SEC guys kind of the most intriguing game because is something about to blow up on us. Because if Missouri does win this game, like David said, there's a path to 8-0, and we don't know if Georgia's 8-0 at that point. But if LSU goes in there and wins, then we're kind of just back to where we were. I'm a victim of stars matter here. I'm going to take LSU to win and cover, not with an extreme amount of confidence, but like something like 34-27, something like that.
Seth, I think I've hit my last 4 locks, most of them by a wide margin.
Catherine
so you're due to miss. So.
Supposedly.
Catherine B., our colleague and number 1 listener, is an LSU Tiger. Sigh, 45-38. I just can't believe that LSU loses back-to-back games. But I'm very possibly wrong, and I don't want to be a homer. This game scared me from the jump in the offseason. So I want to say something that you said in your comments, Seth. And you said, well, I think we figured out what LSU is, and maybe it's just a 9-3, 8-4 team. It's like if they lose to Mizzou, they are not a 9-3 team. Like they've got, this is a very important game for them. They still have some pretty big games on their schedule. Like LSU, if they lose this game, they might be like a 7-5 team. Like, there's some teams left. So the line is moving.
I'm saying they're a 9-3 type team, but I'm picking them to win this game.
Like I'm saying if they don't win this game,
lose to Alabama. I said also 9-3, 8-4. So I'm saying there's an Alabama loss and there's another one in there somewhere.
And it is very easy. And I will give into the temptation and say, hey, actually the BetMGM line is moving to, 4.5 to just lay the points and just blindly convince yourself that LSU wasn't going to lose this game because
possible.
It's just hard to envision the thought process. And truthfully speaking, do we know exactly what Mizzou is definitively yet to make it a lock? I don't know that we do. That said, if you watched LSU play football last week, it was an abomination to organized sports. I don't even know what happened on the field out there. They could not get a stop in a million years. So I think that they're just going to turn into LSU and win the game this week. If I'm getting 6 points, I'm going with Dave on this. They look
Well, it's
terrible.
not like, again, this is a Mizzou team that does have wins against Kansas State and Memphis, who are two good teams, and then beat the heck out of Vandy.
Kansas State
Like-
I think had 5 touchdowns called off the board in that game from penalties.
Something like that. Yes. But they still
Don't ask me why I know that.
won. Yeah. So Mizzou, this is a really interesting ball game for a lot of reasons, but
You feel that
Mizzou,
tiger
I
blood
think
starting to come back up into your chest from when you were a
Ah.
student? You humming the fight song in the shower while you brush your teeth? Wait, are you a brush your teeth in the shower guy?
No.
Why
I
would
don't have a
anyone
good
do
place. I appreciate the efficiency. For me, it's a pragmatic decision. And
I
don't
brush
have a
my
good
teeth in the
place-
shower every morning.
I don't have a good
Wow.
place to put the toothbrush post brushing in the shower.
I used
But
to
I have a little cup in the shower, and
I still shave in the shower.
You just-
because I
yeah,
have
okay.
a whole lot of square footage to shave.
but I only
Yeah,
do
I've
the
only got-
I do the buzzer. I need to do. I do the buzzer at the sink, but I brush my teeth and have a cup in the toothpaste in the shower
While you're watching college football, or no?
while I'm watching college football and popping popcorn. So
While
I got a
you're
whole thing
cooking,
going on.
Kramer.
Yeah,
yeah,
like Kramer.
that is truly a Kramer situation. Ari's a few days away from getting a disposal installed in his shower.
All right, guys, we've got 5 games. We got to get to them really quickly because we spent a lot of time on the bigger ones.
Yeah.
This is probably the last big one of the week. I mean, Notre Dame-Louisville is a pretty big one, but Alabama going on the road, Texas A&M, both teams are 4-1. A&M is getting 2.5 points at Kyle Field, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, kickoff on CBS. I live in Texas. Aggies are pumped.
They should be. They should be. I'm concerned that we may have an Alabama that has figured itself out and is getting ready for a run. I think that world exists.
Mhm.
But this is the best team on both lines, I think, that Alabama has played yet. Ari, I think that's entirely possible.
We thought this too for the Miami game. So do they fix it? That was the analysis of the Miami game.
Kyle is going to be rocking, Ari. And
It is.
the toughest environment yet for Jalen Milroe, who hasn't really played like a super tough road game. I think Aggies win this outright, Ari. Go crazy. Have a second midnight yell after the game, whatever you want to do. I just think the Aggies, I'm not convinced that they're like world beaters, but at the end of the day, Alabama going on the road to Kyle, which loves beating Alabama. They might be second to Texas now, Ari, as the only team that A&M loves beating more.
Well, somebody said this in the chat earlier on the show, but like if Texas A&M handles Bama,
What's
at
handling?
home.
What's handling? Is that just winning?
I don't know, by 10 points, 14
Okay.
points,
Okay.
definitively beats Alabama.
Mhm.
What does that say about who's the best team in Texas this year? I don't know.
Still Texas.
Probably
Yeah,
still
it's still
Texas,
Texas.
but
It's still Texas.
Yeah.
If only we
I
could
think
play
that-
this game. All right.
the thing that's interesting about this game here is that no matter what happens, there's a very compelling column attached to it. Because if Texas A&M wins the game, then Alabama is officially out. If Texas A&M loses this game, then they're 4-2, and the shit starts again. So I'm excited to
Mhm.
watch. I think A&M is going to win the game outright too. I think that quarterback play in combination with below average line play when playing the deepest and best defensive line they've probably faced all year. I mean, the only one that they've played that's kind of similar is Texas, and I don't think that
Yeah.
it's as good as the Aggies. Give me the points.
I was arguing
Um,
with our colleague Antonio Morales in the Colorado press box last week. He was hating on Max Johnson as Max Johnson was dropping dime after dime after dime.
Antonio's a
Arkansas.
closet hater. He's a hater. He speaks
I don't
he
think
speaks
Max
quietly,
Johnson,
but he has
yeah,
dragon
Max
breath.
Johnson's not going to be. He was also hating on Oregon's defense. It's not like Max Johnson is going to win a Heisman, but he is above average, and I have that.
He's
a lot
not
of
your
people
typical
have confirmed
backup.
that.
We could say that.
No, and he's not going to be phased by this, the roster or the scene or any of that. Experienced backups are hard to come by in college football, and again, it's not like Connor Wegman had made the leap either. So this idea that Texas A&M is definitively worse with the injury, I'm not so sure that we have seen enough evidence to absolutely believe that that's the case.
Okay, let's just do speed round. I'm going to say the games. You guys tell me who you want. No explanation. Ready?
You didn't
Okay.
let me pick, by the way.
Oh,
Oh,
you
all right,
picked this
what do
one.
you got?
Oh, yeah,
Seth,
you're
what do
the
you got?
SEC
No,
guy.
no,
My bad. Yeah.
I had a lot of back and forth, like why to pick either team, and then I realized that unless you're really, really sure, you shouldn't pick against Nick Saban. So
Yeah.
I'm going with Alabama, and that's my in-depth analysis of that game.
It's a pretty good analysis. Okay, quickly. Number 10, Notre Dame, 4-1, laying 6.5 at number 25, Louisville, 5-0. Who do you guys got?
Louisville's overvalued because of the schedule. Notre Dame wins and covers. 5-0 is 5-0, but Louisville hadn't done a thing to sit up and make you say, okay, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Just overvalued. They're just not that good. People are 5-0 and they're ranked, and people think they're good, but they're just not playing anybody.
Didn't both teams play at NC State? And I think Notre Dame had the more impressive win. I think I have that right. I may not, but I have Notre Dame to barely cover, maybe a 7 or 8 point win.
I have Notre Dame covering too.
Mm-hmm.
Fresno State 5-0, laying 6 points at Wyomin, who did beat the Big 12 champs in Dave's book. Almost beat my Big 12 champs, which would have been terrifying. Who do we have here quickly?
First of all, I'm not going to go too far in loving on Fox for broadcasting this game because they did kill the Pac-12 essentially. But shout out to Fox for taking this ball game because it is a great game, one of the games of the year in the Mountain West. But Wyomin, I think, ruins the party and throws a stake in the spokes of the Fresno State bandwagon and wins. That's a tough place to play. Laramie, they are going to be hyped. I mean, this has got to be the first time either of these teams outside of a bowl game has been on Fox before. So give me Craig Bull's guys. Wyomin has just gotten the job done every single week. And that one loss, Ari, is to your national champion Texas Longhorns in a game that they were tied in the fourth quarter. So I like Fresno. The defense, this is going to be a really physical game. But give me Wyomin. Shout out to Mikey Keene. I'm sorry, my guy.
I got Fresno real quick. Wyoming's color scheme, I'd like to give it kudos. The brown and gold, very few are courageous enough to do it. San Diego Padres, as disappointing as they were on the field this year, they just have some sweet bastards of uniforms with those pinstripes. They embrace it. Kudos to Wyoming. Denver Broncos, I think, originally were brown and gold and abandoned it.
Yes, this is true.
And so Wyoming, you stand out because you embrace your brown and gold, or maybe they call it mustard, or I don't know what they do. But while I'm not picking Wyoming to win this game, I just like to single it out for praise for its uniform scheme.
I actually think that it's funny that you said that because I think they have sneaky top 10 uniforms and I love their end zones. And I also have never been to Wyoming. I just want to go cover a game near.
Laramie's on my list of top 5 places I have not been that I need to go. I knocked off Autzen and Eugene this year. That was awesome.
I lived on Fresno State's campus for 4 months during an MLB.com internship in college because I was a California minor league baseball specialist.
I need a book about that experience.
Oh, it was one of the best summers of my life. I lived out there on my own. I had no friends. There was a casino where 18-year-olds could gamble, and I drove all around California that summer on mileage, writing about minor league baseball.
Further confirming, I need a book about this summer. Yeah.
And it made me realize how much people in Fresno love those Bulldogs. I'm gonna take Fresno on this one. Okay. Marshall 4-0, taking 7 points at NC State 3-2. That's the second to last game I'm gonna pick here.
I did not have Brennan Armstrong gets benched for MJ Morris on my Brennan Armstrong, Robert and I reunion bingo board this year. I have more and more trouble figuring out what happened to Virginia in 2021. They were very good, very fun, maybe the most explosive team in the country, and they have not been able to recreate that magic in any way, shape, or form. NC State's kind of depressing to watch. Marshall, very spicy. I think Marshall covers here. They might flirt with winning this game. NC State can't score, man. And I don't know that MJ Morris is the answer there. It's a problem. So give me Marshall, the Herd, and Charles Huff covering.
I outsourced this pick to a Athens resident who used to coach at Marshall. Probably do a little Googling, figure out which one. He thinks Marshall can keep it close, but home field's important. And NC State could be helped by a dual threat quarterback. So I'll go with Marshall to cover, but NC State to win.
I'm on Marshall too. Lastly, USC 5-0, laying 25.5 points against Arizona this week. Over under 71.5. I like the under of this game, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. No, not a low. I mean, Jacob Cowing.
I think that it's I don't know what the exact numbers are, but over-unders in the 70s this year are hitting at like an 80% clip, the under. I think the clock rules are still we're still catching up to that stuff. Yeah.
Tataroa McMillan, that 1-2 punch with him and Jacob Cowing. I don't know what you've seen, Ari, from USC to make them think that they're not going to give up 30 and score 50 in this game. I 22.5 is too many. Arizona is not that different from Colorado in just what they can do, but they have all their pieces together. So give me USC. I mean, give me Arizona covering, but the over is the pick here, Ari.
The over, okay. We'll see about that.
I got USC covering. I think David and I might have been like on the opposite end of every pick so far. Let's finish going that way. The number 21.5 seems low, and I say that as a firm believer, as I think a lot of people increasingly are, that Lincoln Riley's never going to win a national championship unless he makes some fundamental differences with the way he builds his program.
I'd never play this game in a million years with my real money, but I'm done laying 3 scores with USC playing anybody. Their defense is hot ass, and I'm tired of getting beaten the way that I was beaten last week in that Colorado game.
I tried to warn you, Ari. I they're
going to go. I thought they were going to score 70 points last week in the second quarter, and they didn't. They won by 7, right? No thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. Okay, superlative picks. Locks of the week. Dave is just killing the locks of the week.
Yeah, buddy. That's how we do it, man. That's how we do it. Mizzou is my lock. Revisiting the Tiger on Tiger crime. That is a very interesting ball game that I think we have, and I've laid out the reasons for it. Brady Cook has a big game against the secondary. Luther Burden. If you're looking for a player prop, whatever Luther, I don't know what Luther Burden's over under is for receiving yards, 115 or whatever. He's going over it. I'll just tell you. They got nobody that can cover him.
Seth, your lock of the week is UNC minus 8.5, and I'm going to let you explain why. But just so you know, as we were recording this, Kez Walker's transfer waiver was approved by the NCAA, and I believe he's going to be playing. So
really,
that was a huge story and kind of changes the calculus a little bit on how you change. I mean, you were already on that side.
I'm actually more annoyed now because what was the point of
what were we doing?
Well, the NCAA statement says that North Carolina provided them new information and then scolds UNC for not providing that information a few weeks ago.
What new information? What are we doing?
Yeah, that's what I can't wait to hear what it was and what UNC's response to that is or what.
That's great, but also it infuriates me because it's like whatever. That's annoying.
So for him, I'd play 4 games and then redshirt. So you just,
yeah, you're in a weird spot with eligibility and NFL draft stuff. I don't know what his draft stock looks like, but that's
the line is shifted on BetMGM to 9.5. But go ahead.
Still, I mean, I had North Carolina 8.5. It's nice that Syracuse is 4-1, but it hasn't really beaten anybody close to North Carolina's level. And Syracuse just lost by 17 at home to Clemson. 8.5 just seemed really low. 9.5 still seems low. I think North Carolina covering's a lot.
I like the over here, but Garrett Schrader continuing to play like a crash test dummy is my absolute favorite thing in college sports right now. Last week he had a run where he was like 20 yards downfield and tried to do like a spin move and got absolutely obliterated. And the ball shot out like 10 yards and he got bailed out because of kind of I don't know about the targeting call, but Garrett Schrader, from his days being helicoptered at Mississippi State, has continued to be incredibly fun and incredibly reckless. Never changed.
Did you know that he's Hank Schrader's nephew? Did you know that?
That's good. Those FBI genes have
he's a tough kid and he's seen some stuff.
That's a good fun fact, Ari.
Yeah, my lock of the week is Texas Tech minus 1.5. I just think that they are better than they've performed. That West Virginia. I think that West Virginia game still makes me a little queasy. I don't really know what happened there. But we're finding out slowly but surely that West Virginia is more competent than we thought they were going to be. I just think that Baylor's off this year. Texas Tech is a good team, and maybe nothing to get back to playing without the pressure of winning the Big 12 like clowns like Dave have put on their shoulders. They can start playing within themselves, and they can start playing with some confidence and that nothing to lose, reckless, wreck 'em, abandon. I just really like this spot here for Texas Tech. I know it's on the road. But laying a
also
point.
Baylor stinks. It's a good lock.
Baylor
stinks.
I
like the pick.
Yeah, I'm hoping to. I'm 1-0 in my last one lock of the week, so I'm trying to get a little streak here. Okay, trap games. Dave, who's your trap game?
Ole Miss. Be careful. Be careful. Nobody's getting up for Arkansas these days. The vibes in Arkansas are absolutely terrible. Listen, I am an Arkansas native. I am in multiple Arkansas group chats. I didn't watch a ton of the first quarter. I was in Colorado, but I checked my phone after the first quarter, and I had 56 text messages, I believe, in one of my high school friend group chats. So listen, guys, it's an angry place to be. Arkansas is very low. Ole Miss is very high. Be careful, Rebs. I know the Rebs feel like they're on top of the world. LSU might be slightly overvalued. Just be careful. Big trap game here. Big trap game for Ole Miss.
Next game, Seth, who's your trap?
TCU's not ranked, but touchdown favored on the road at Iowa State, which maybe I'm just trusting too much in Matt Campbell. But TCU just lost at home to West Virginia. I know it was close, but I think the bettors, the line, may be giving TCU too much credit for being TCU based off last year, and also for Colorado being good, and kind of retroactively giving them credit for that. Iowa State's, they just got clobbered at Oklahoma. We talked earlier in the show about Oklahoma being better, and their other two losses were close. So I'd go Iowa State, pull off the upset.
Mine is Colorado at Arizona State. Colorado, I believe, is laying 3.5 or 4.5. Much lower. Are you going to this?
No, I'm on the couch this weekend. I'm very excited.
Must be nice.
Doug Howler will be there for us. So
okay.
What a Dion-free show this has been.
It really has been a Dion-free show, and Saturday probably will be too with this game buried on Pac-12 Network. I'm curious.
Unless Colorado loses, which is what I'm warning that could happen. The line is a little bit lower than I would have thought it would be. Arizona State's kind of a mess. Colorado, I thought played a pretty good game at home against USC last week. You would think they'd be able to handle, 3.5 or whatever points that they're laying. That just seems like a bizarre line, and Arizona State's probably going to get up for this game. And, athletically speaking, they could probably match up pretty well on the lines too.
They're still
we'll
on
see.
QB3 though, Ari. That's the issue.
Right. So that's that. Okay, Sickos games of the week. Go ahead, Dave.
If we can't have Iowa, Nebraska's right there. This is a bad team right now, and it is an ugly team. I've seen them in person. They just it's been a little bit better since Heinrich Haarberg took over, but they're hard to watch. They do not great things. And this week they're going to Illinois, another team that just wants to pound you. Burt Ball fired up. I mean, this is going to be 3 yards and a cloud of dust and 8 fumbles. This is going to be, I don't really want to watch this Friday night game, so I probably may watch it, but we're taking our daughter to Dollywood on Friday, so I may have some of this on a phone, but I don't know how much of this I will actually be watching.
Say hi to 3-year Letterman while you're there.
Yes, Pigeon Forge's finest.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have a timeshare out there. Yeah.
My Sickos. So does Virginia finally get a win against in-state rival William and Mary, the mighty Tribe, alma mater of Mike Tomlin, Carolina Panthers beat writer Joe Person of The Athletic, as well as my sister.
Nice.
And Lou Holtz used to coach there. The once proud Cavaliers are 0-5. There is no line on this game, but I want to pick it anyway, and I'll pick Virginia. But I'm not actually that confident. And there's probably a story to be done on what the hell happened to Virginia.
It's a Dabo coaching tree story because Jeff Scott went to USF and a place that a lot of people have won at and made them maybe the worst G5 team. And Tony Elliott, a guy that a lot of people respected, was in the mix for the Tennessee job, goes to Virginia, and I'm thinking right now, they're probably the worst Power 5 team. I don't understand it.
I should say they had a terrible tragedy last year.
Sure, they are really bad this year. And that's not that situation is sort of separate from this is a bad football team.
And Venables did not look good last year.
Yes. And that's not really the Dabo tree, but it's not good. It's not.
Have you guys ever noticed that the Athletic logo is identical to the Arby's logo and also identical to Akron's logo?
Somewhat. We've changed some logos. We've had some different logos. I get confused when I see the X logo on my phone. I have clicked on the X logo while trying to open the Athletic app and vice versa multiple times recently. It's a problem.
Yeah, the X, when you ever get a link from x.com, it's still kind of like, I don't want to click on this, but we'll probably get through there in our brains once it becomes more normal. My single game of the week is Northern Illinois versus Akron. It's 1-4 teams in the MAC. Like, what else do I have to say? Like,
Daniel Garrett's not going to be happy with you. The MAC's
yeah,
finest.
Daniel Garrett. Akron is the lock of the week again. But yeah,
shout out to Joe
I hate
Moorhead though. He can scheme up some ball plays.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys, that was a long episode. Thank you so much for listening to the latest edition of Until Saturday. Be sure to follow on the podcast or wherever you listen to the show, whether that be YouTube, anywhere you do. Like, subscribe, find us, review us, share us. Do everything that you can to help the show grow. And word of mouth is a very powerful thing. Anything you can do to help helps us. And the next time we will talk will be Saturday night after the games for our live reaction show. Both Dave and I will be at home on the couch, so it shouldn't be too late. Looking forward to all the great games this weekend, and, of course, looking forward to talking to you guys again on Saturday night. Until then, for Seth Emerson and Dave Ubben, I'm Ari Wasserman. That was Until Saturday.